Hi, I'm Kelsey and I'm a lifestyle design coach, and today I want to talk to you about 7 practical tips for fostering resiliency in your life right now. So what is resiliency? Resiliency is our ability to bounce back from an adverse situation. It can be a difficult situation like the loss of a loved one, trauma, financial stress, health issues, relationship issues, or any sort of tragedy. Now, this isn't to say that someone who is resilient isn't experiencing any sort of emotional distress or pain from these difficult situations. It just means that they were able to adapt to, overcome, and maybe even thrive in the face of these shitty life events. And it is this process of overcoming that makes us resilient. And the thing is that, life happens to us all the time, and it keeps happening, and there's going to be more crappy life events. So how do we learn how to be more resilient now in the face of these new difficult situations? And so that's where I'm going to focus on the 7 C's model of resiliency. There are many models of resiliency out there, but today I'm going to focus on the 7 C's. The 7 C's are competency, confidence, connection, character, contribution, coping, and control. So I'm just going to go over each one, and I'm going to give you one practical tip that you can start utilizing right now to foster more resiliency in whatever challenges and situations that come up in your life. So the first C is competency. So competency, when we feel competent in our ability to do something, we are able to then overcome certain things. If we feel like we're capable of doing it, then we will be more resilient in the face of a challenge or a setback. So how do we start fostering more competency in our life? Practical tip number 1 would be setting a goal. So when you're working towards a goal or a challenge, you go through that process of overcoming whatever the little setbacks are, and then finally reaching your goal and seeing that you were capable of doing that and that you were competent enough to do that. So practical tip number 1 is that I want you to set a goal, something super small for this week. It could be, I want to wake up earlier. I want to go outside for a walk a couple times this week. I want to drink more water. Something as simple as that. But I want you to sit down. I want you to write out a plan and try to implement it into your daily life the next week. And when you do conquer that goal, I want you to see how it makes you feel. That's something super simple that you can start with right now. The second C in developing resiliency is confidence. So confidence is something that I think all of us struggle with, including myself, and the ability to see past the negative and look at the positive is what that process of creating resiliency is, right? So how do we turn our negative thoughts into positive ones and then build this self-esteem? So practical tip number 2 that I want you to try is I want you to think of those negative thoughts that you find yourself coming back to constantly. Let's say 5. I want you to write down 5 negative thoughts that you regularly have. And then I want you to literally write the opposite of them, the positive version of it. And now you'll have 5 positive thoughts. And then I want you to rewrite the positive thoughts over again. Ideally, I would say rewrite these multiple times. It's up to you though. At least rewrite it once. And that can start to alter the way that you think about things. Most of these practices are things that need to be done multiple times. Doing it just once isn't going to change an ingrained behavior. But this is just one practical tip that you can start practicing right now. The third C in creating resiliency in your life is connection. It's when we connect and we bond with other people that we can see a perspective outside of ourselves and see that there are alternative ways of thinking about things and doing things. And the first way to connect with people is to talk to them. So I want you to, practical tip number 3, I want you to give someone a call. I want to give that friend a call that you haven't talked to in a while, see how things are going with business or school and what they're doing. Call mom and dad, call family members, see how things are going with them. If you don't feel like you have anyone personally that you can call, go on Facebook, join a community of like-minded people who are into the same things as you, and I guarantee, just even from stalking on the page, that you'll see there are people who are coming from the same mindset and on the same page as you, and it can really create this sense of connection and support. So that's practical tip number 3. The fourth C is character. So what does character have to do with resiliency, right? So character is learning, about yourself, understanding what is right and what is wrong, and then showing that in our regular behavior. And the thing is that when we know who we are as a person and what we believe in, we will follow that to overcome challenges and setbacks, because it's something what we believe in and we believe is right or wrong. So that has to do with our character. So building character in that sense also builds resiliency then. So practical tip number 4 for building character is really simple. Practice being humble. I want you to write a list of things that you're grateful for, things that you feel humbled by, and that you appreciate to have in your life. You can write 10 things down on a list and start from there. I suggest practicing this regularly, but this is just one simple step that you can take today. The 5th C in resiliency and developing it is contribution. So it is not any secret, based on psychological research, that we actually feel really good when we give back to others. And it helps us feel like we can do more when we give back to others. And so that's where that resiliency comes in. If we're helping other people, we feel resilient in the face of things, and that we've helped others overcome, and therefore we can overcome, so to speak. So practical tip number 5, I want you to give back. It can be something as simple as, giving someone a compliment. Hey, you did really good on that presentation today, or I really like your shoes, or whatever it may be. You could hold the door open for someone. I mean, if you want to shoot for the moon, go and volunteer your time for someone who might need a little extra help. So that is practical tip number 5. The 6th C is, what was that contribution? Coping, right? So life happens, and stressful events are stressful. Things when we lose a loved one, or we're experiencing trauma or tragedy or anything like that, it causes a lot of pain, a lot of distress, and it's really important that we learn how to healthily cope with these situations. So for me in particular, I find exercise to be really helpful to my anxiety. I burn that excess energy, and then being able to sit with my thoughts is another thing that I struggle with. So I've been practicing meditation. In particular, I use an app called Insight Timer, INSIGHT. It's a free app, and it's really, really helpful for me learning how to kind of sit with myself and my thoughts. But self-care and self-love can look like anything from taking a bubble bath to sitting down with a cup of tea and reading your favorite book, or going for a walk, or just doing something for you with no other strings attached, just to take care of you, just to fill a cup, because we cannot give from an empty cup. And being able to take care of ourselves in those really difficult moments is what helps us overcome, and what therefore helps us build resiliency. So yeah, that is practical tip number 6. And lastly, the 7th C is control. Now this one's a difficult one. Simple concept, but difficult to put into practice. So there are a lot of things in life that are outside of our control, and there's nothing that we can do about it. The only thing that is within our control is ourselves, and how we choose to react to these situations. I am a firm believer, that the only constant in life is change, and a lot of that change we don't have control over. So we have to learn how to be strong, and how to keep moving forward, and how to find balance in all of that. So I would say a very simple step to practicing the control that you have in your life is, for practical tip number 7, is identifying in a situation, a distressing situation, maybe previously or currently, what's going on with you. How are you feeling? The negative emotions that you're experiencing, and then the situation itself that feels out of your control. But then I want you to take a moment and think about, well, maybe I don't have control over this other person, or I don't have control over the situation that's happening, but what do I have control over? If it means that you have the ability to, process your emotions, or practice a little bit of self-care and love, or maybe go out of your way to express to this other person in the situation that you're being hurt and that these are your wants and needs. Think about what it is that you personally could do in that moment. Now, it's not to say that that situation will change, but focusing on what you do have control over versus what you don't is a very big step in fostering more resiliency in your life. Because if we get stuck on that, then it's a place that where we aren't overcoming. So those are my 7 tips, practical tips for starting to build more resiliency in your daily life. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to comment below. I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me and chat and listen, and I will see you next time.